This is Interpreting Wine founder and host Lawrence Francis inviting you to my first ever Interpreting Wine Hospitality Summit. This first of its kind audio event takes place from Monday the 28th of September until Thursday the 1st of October and will feature a diverse range of voices from London hospitality. Attendees gain early access to episodes over the 4-day event, and each episode will feature a different figure from the London hospitality scene, sharing stories and practical tips to help you navigate these uncertain times. Signing up will give you exclusive access to show notes for each session, giving you a list of key takeaways and strategies you can experiment with right away. And you will also get access to the Interpreting Wine Hospitality Summit private Facebook group, where you can discuss each session and access behind-the-scenes content. To sign up for this free event, just head to interpretingwine.com/summit. Today's episode of the Wine Audio Masterclass series features the Understanding Natural Fruit Wine panel discussion recorded at Raw London 2019. In the Speaker's Corner section of the fair, I hosted a panel that featured Karl Sjöström of Fruktstereo, Côme Isambert, winemaker from the Loire, Cédric Bloas of Cidrerie Leguer, and Niklas Peltzer of Meinklang. Each of the panel introduces themselves and their connection to the natural fruit wine scene before discussing in further detail what goes into the ciders that they produce. They talk integrated agriculture and blurring the lines between different fruits. They discuss how does the cider message continue to grow. We get introduced to the Tour de Fruit wine fair that takes place a mere 200 meters from La Dive. They talk the cider revolution and make connections with the global movement, and talk about the new connections they're hoping to forge in the future. Enjoy.
Thank you so much for coming today. It's nice to see so many of you here. I'll briefly introduce myself before I really want to get the focus over onto the wonderful panel we've assembled here today. So some of you might know me as Lawrence. I'm the host of the Interpreting Wine podcast. So that's mainly recorded from here in London. But really because of our wonderful wine scene and our wonderful trade that we have coming through London, it means that I'm able to feature guests from all over the world, and have indeed featured a couple of the guys, Karl and Niklas, before on the show. My style on the podcast is to say as little as possible, allow the guests to talk. And I think, with an hour and 4 fantastic natural fruit wine makers with us here, I'm going to do that here again today, so keep the focus on that. We've got a lot to cover. Just to clarify, in case anybody was wondering, the guys have brought bottles, just if they're going to be talking about them, obviously pictures to take with them, but we were thinking better just to go down afterwards, taste with the guys. It will be mainly a talk today, not a tasting up here. So. What I always like to do, first of all, is just let everybody get into tune with who you guys are and where your background is and how you come to be doing what you're doing. So I just wonder if, perhaps starting with you, Karl, if you wouldn't mind, give us a high-level, sort of 2-minute cider origin story of how you came to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Karl Sjöström, born and raised in Sweden, but traveled a lot the last 10-15 years, but moved back to Malmö, so very south in Sweden. Worked as a sommelier for 10 years, started an import business with natural wines 4 or 5 years ago, and in 2016 me and Mikael, we started Fruktstereo, mixing all kinds of fruit. We started with apples and pears, like you normally do when you do ciders. Then we met Côme, and we made the first co-ferment with him with grapes and apples from France, which is Tour de Fruit. So it's grapes from Loire and apples from Normandy. So it's actually a Tour de France, but it's more a Tour de Fruit. And then we it's too much to explain in just a short talk, but we started with cider Now we make cider and fruit pet nuts. So everything is bottle conditioned, like a pet nut. And then it's ridiculous to call or put things in boxes, we think. So we mix pretty much everything. Co-ferment or ferment them separately and blending in the end, depending on varieties, fruits, whatever.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe Côme, if you want to give your side of that. And
hi everybody, so my name is Isambert. I'm from France. I studied winemaking, so I'm an enologist. We traveled a bit before settling in the Loire Valley, where I found the right cultivar for me, the freshness and the aromas of the Côme Noir, I was crazy also about pear cider. So as soon as I could settle and have my little winery already set with the wine, I just wanted to get some pears. So I got the pears from Normandy from a friend of mine. And as Karl said, he was importing my wine. And we just had a click together about the cider and the cider revolution, trying to get a cider bit away from the standards, with sugar. And so when I told him that I had a lot of fruits and I couldn't pick everything, he said, okay, we're going to come help you. We're going to get some Swedish Vikings inviting Normandy again. And so they came to me, and we spent time in the vineyard and collecting grapes, the grapes that were not very good for wine. And that's how we started making the Tour de Fruit by thinking, okay, these grapes are tasting good, but we cannot make wine, so what can we do with it? And I think it's the whole story behind this fruit pet nuts. It's based on this. What can we do with fruits? Because fruits are nice balance, so you have to balance the fruits and even the veggies now together to get a very stable and balanced drink. And I think there's a lot of things to do, and especially with the ancestral method, pet nuts. It's good because you go to ferment the sugar in the end, and you've got something very interesting in the bottle. So let's keep the talk, and we'll see you later for the tasting.
Okay, Niklas? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Niklas Peltzer originally from Germany. Used to work as well as a sommelier and then in the wine trade, and joined 6 years ago a vitamin farm called Meinklang in southeast of Austria, southeast of Vienna on the Hungarian border. We are mixed agriculture, and I'm running the wine part together with the oldest son and his wife. We always focused on mixed agriculture and different things, and saw that in the same way on beverages. So we started early with the elderflower projects or elderflower drinks or wine, however you want to call it. And then later on also with beer, we farm grains, and we started a little local organic brewery. We always wanted to extend that whole thing, and never saw it in the same way as boxes of wine and prestige wine and everything else is not prestige or valuable. And cider we started first time in 2015. We have apples since 15 years, more for the own consumption and to make juice, because we don't want to have all the time alcohol in our mind. So we want to be a little bit children friendly as well, and start with some apple juice. And we planted to pass apples back then because they're really high in acidity, and we just don't want the super sweet juice, which is a common thing on the market. And then we tried some ciders. I don't actually anymore how it started, and it came out of a fever a little bit in harvest in 15, and it was a good harvest, and we said, let's just try some cider out, and it was a mess. And this is actually our second vintages, and I think a lot developed. We are not cider profis or do a lot, and I obviously Karl and become friends, and I try a lot of their stuff, and I think it's super interesting to focus on the future. Actually, this is also our first co-fermenting wine and fruit, grapes, and apples.
Okay. And last but not least.
Hello everyone, good intimidated. I'm Cédric, I'm a farmer. I've studied tropical farming and nature cultivation. I've got the parcours like Forrest Gump. My parents were from a little town in middle Brittany. they decided they didn't want to stay their life in these little towns as they've been expats. So when you're an expat, you have to take the flavour of travelling. You don't want to go back to the weather similar to UK and Brittany, so you keep on travelling. So this is what I've done. I've met my wife in Nigeria. She's from London. And then she told me once, darling, we're coming home. Why are we coming home? What are we going to do? So I don't care. I'm coming to say, you do wine. So we were drinking and barbecue with Australian friends. They told us, why are you French? You just need to make wine, isn't it? So okay, yeah, good idea. I always wanted to make wine, so we've been looking in one area, Bordeaux, Loire, the same. So the bank didn't follow us to buy the vineyard. We didn't have enough money, and we were missing the sea. So we went back home to a holiday house in Brittany and was looking for something to do. Hairdresser, bakery, nothing. Well, fuck it. And we found we made a mini. We found someone having a mini farm cider for sale. It was going to retire. I said, let's crank on it. Let's do it. And then the bank followed us. It was 2 hectares, organic already. The cider was nice, the label very ugly, so we changed everything. We bought another cider, another orchard. We are planting every year an hectare because I'm not putting any chemical on the orchard. So some years it's going to be pumping apples, other days it's going to be other years nothing. So it's better to have more apples than nothing. So I have a different way of making cider than my colleagues. I do the cider as I like. And I make still lots of mistakes. Maybe you do some mistakes as well.
Of course.
I don't know you guys are good.
Sometimes that's stuff.
So I'm trying to make the cider as I like. This is my third cider. I'm still a beginner. Because we need a bit of cash flow to play back the bank. We are doing some apple juice, like my neighbor. So for kids, pregnant women, and for cocktails. We tried just now sparkling apple juice with the cognac next door. Where we are now is brilliant. What else I can say? That's all. Thank you. I'll work in 15 days.
I just do a follow-up on the mistake part. That's pretty funny. Of course, everyone makes mistake, but for us it's also a big thing with blending fruit because the maturity of grapes or when to pick them, sometimes you get mouse, sometimes you get everything, but then there's always a solution of sulfur, or you can mix or blend with other fruits during the fermentation. So when we co-ferment, we don't maybe start with the whole co-fermentation at the starting point, but you can always mix in more fruit. Also, I discussed with a lot of winemakers when the pH is maybe too high or too low, why not adding other types of fruit with higher pH to a low pH and vice versa. So it's all about blending. If you have a mistake or something went wrong in the fermentation, you can always add other stuff to make it still natural.
Well, it's a little bit as well like when Cidrerie how it started, and it was the base idea to have a wine which is maybe not perfect and add some herbs. I think it's just something super interesting. And I know somebody from Australia actually who had a really volatile red wine and mixed it with cider, and it's a red cider-ish, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It's a super cool, interesting drink. As a wine, it would never have be stable or interesting. The apples made really round and focused.
I can just add something about mistakes. The thing with mistakes is when it's good mistakes, is to reproduce the mistakes.
Yes.
And this is quite tough to do it again. So sometimes it's like this was a mistake at the beginning. It was like something coming out of nowhere, and just to try to do the same thing the next year, it's not easy. So mistakes sometimes can lead us to a good thing, but then you have to try to reproduce. And I think it's the whole idea behind the mixing fruit, as Karl said, is you know more or less what you want, what type of balance you want in your product. So then you adapt, you adjust, and tasting the fruits before when they as fruits. So it's good because you know exactly what you're going to get at the end. So yeah, it's a good way of redoing the cuvées that you want to do.
Okay, brilliant. Do you just want to get a sense really of your experience or recent experience really of drinking cider versus drinking wine? So could I just by show of hands, like nice and high. So how many of you have had wine in the last month? You know, exclude today.
Last hour.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
nose and go direct.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then cider.
You're maybe here for the top.
So pretty high then, pretty high. So we're already maybe, you know, speaking to people who are aware of some of the issues with cider.
Alcoholics, you mean.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a quote from a gentleman called Felix Nash, who's a Brit who runs the Fine Cider Company, who said that to call something cider today in Britain only needs to be 35% apple juice. And that this can be completely from concentrate. So, and I think the point that he was making is that you're getting very much away from a sense of place. You can kind of get a concentrate from just about anywhere in the world, put that into the vessel, and then create a cider which, you know, doesn't necessarily, as I say, reflect a region or a particular style. And what I do want to get though, just unpick a little bit that word cider and get a sense from you about how different the products that you're all making are actually from what the general public may think of as cider if they're only going to be exposed to things that have that 35% concentrate, that's the kind of more mass-produced stuff. So this is a kind of an opportunity to talk about some of the processes and, you know, what makes the cider that you're involved in making kind of unique.
Well, basically it's 100% pure apple, pure fruit whatsoever, and we all hand-pick the fruit. This also give a lot of flavour. In cider, I don't want to say the brand because they're also our colleagues in another way. They harvest I talk about cider, I don't know nothing about grape, but harvest the apple and the pear with big machines, and it's like wine, it's like everything. When you go shopping, someone has been badly handled and something has been nicely handled, you know the flavour. So basically, it's like a good cooking. For the good juice, you need good fruit. And we're all 100% fruit, like wine. Though the big lobbyists have been negotiating with our parliament in Belgium to add some non-clarified water with concentrate and call it still cider. It's basically more or less the same law to say, you know, in supermarket when you have 100% nectar or whatever the names are, it's similar laws because no one has been putting a finger on it and to say, no, we actually have 100% pure apple fruit juice fermented. So, and no one knows. And we all go to the pub, we all go to the bars and get a cider, get some whatever, without controlling what is behind. It's like organic and biodynamic farming. If you don't know your local farmer, if you don't know how the farm is done, because basically fruit has come from the farm, wherever you buy it and you produce it, it needs to be controlled. At least you can source it and know where it comes from.
Yeah, the rules in Britain is better than in Sweden. In Sweden we have the rule of 15% of apples, and that could also be concentrate. So that's also why Nick and me started the Fruktstereo, because the thing with 15% fruit, actually Swedish cider is selling like hell, like millions and millions of liters everywhere. With the Swedish cider, there is 15 to 20% of fruit. You probably know the brands because they're everywhere here and all over. So that was also one of the reasons why we started, to get 100% fruit in the beverage instead of 15 or 20 or whatever stupid drink you want to call it. Alcoholic soda.
And the thing is, there is no, you've got a common regulation for wine. For cider, there is nothing. So the French standards and the English or the Swedish are different. In France, you can only call cider what is made from apple and pear, or blend of the two. If you add something else, it's actually an alcoholic drink made from fruit. It's different, there is no name for it. That's why we start also the story of the fruit pet nuts, because it's made like a pet nut, like a wine pet nut, but with other fruits than grapes. The story also behind the concentrates, and so it means dehydrated fruits. Imagine if you had dehydrated grapes. Actually, at the moment, it's not done, but it's a possibility. why not? I mean, it's easier to travel with dehydrated grapes over the world than make you blend, add water, and make a good wine or a bad wine. But yeah, so it's the whole story behind this regulation is the industry in France of cider is huge. It's like 85 to 90%, and it's big companies, and the small companies are starting, and there's also a question of how we can promote our landscapes. So there is trees everywhere, but trees that nobody is doing anything with. So there is products, there is fruits. Even in Champagne, there is now a good cider producer in Champagne, but they don't do anything because it's not a tradition. All the tradition has been lost. We discussed also with people from the Basque, the Pays Basque, close to the border with Spain, and they also lose their tradition of making cider. So nowadays, people who are more and more involved in this, and to get back the tradition of making cider, like we get the tradition of making wine. And I think it's very important also for the identity, local identity, to preserve the patrimoine, what we got from the past. Because some trees, especially in Normandy for the pears, they can be 200 years old or 300. So it's something that we have to preserve for later.
Yeah, that's what we started as well. I'm not the farmer. I just we're pickers. Mika and me call each other or us, because we go to abandoned orchards. In the 90s in Sweden, everyone was leaving their orchards because, like Côme said, we imported a lot of fruit instead of eating or using what we had in Sweden. So there's plenty of abandoned orchards, garden fruit. Probably 95 to 99% is thrown away. 18, which was the best year in, I don't know how long, but even the deposit centers, they were full after a month, and it was still like 3 months of apples to pick. So it's just the waste that we can produce good cider from is just, in Sweden it's, And also that's why also I like to Niklas to speak about more the farming culture, which is also very interesting. Instead of only planting grapes, you can use all kinds of fruit in that farm or that area.
Well, to Ron's question, I don't have to add a lot because I think most is said. In Austria, to be honest, there's not a big cider culture or any strong tradition with it. You see it a little bit here and there, but it's not a beverage which is really common anymore, and I'm not sure that it ever really was. For us, it was something that started naturally in a way, like everything what we do. We don't look so much left and right. We really try to do just something good. I think it's a pity that it has this bad reputation still in most places, and we feel that when we started with the cider, it was definitely like a different level, and you get back a lot of like wind against you. You know, it was not like it was accepted like wine, and you still can feel that there's a lot of bad reputation, and that's a pity because there's so much opportunities, like I said, especially in Scandinavian countries and cooler climates, and a lot of places where you have a lot of abandoned orchards, and I heard from all farmers the same, and we see the same, and you can get apples for free basically. And the apple prices are collapsing. Right? We have 20 hectares apples, which is quite a lot. And it's kind of like, if we wouldn't decide and the juice, we kind of as well have to let them hang because we pick them as well by hand, obviously. And the cost which you have, a kilogram of Demeter certified, we talked about Demeter certified apples, you would sell for maybe 18 cents a kilogram of apples. So that doesn't cover that.
And I think, very organically, very naturally, we've finished up at the point that we were talking about just before we came here, which was, you were happy to give us a bit of an overview of what happens at Meinklang in terms of your farm, and then how the integration is between the grapes and now the apples and the other agricultural products. So I think that leads nicely onto that.
Well, I think in general nowadays we like to separate everything so strongly, and everything becomes such a specific thing and a trade, and winemaking becomes such a just a crafted thing you do in a cellar, but nobody really talks about farming anymore. And I think you see it a lot in natural wine too. So many cool wines out there from non-organic farm grapes where there's no relation to anything, and I think that's the basis of it. When we talk about an honest, real product, it starts with farming, and you should have a connection like you guys go to the farms. We work with the farm here, apples, stuff. And for us, there's no difference between a grape or an apple. There's not a difference between a grain or anything. Especially when you see it in a holistic way of farming, you see that as one organism, and you work with that organism, and everything has this reason and part in that process, in this circle. And also, if you understand plants and plant physiology, you understand for all the other things to grow and do much more. And we learned a lot from cider, from fermentation, as well for the grapes, and we just don't make a real difference between that. I think it should be a natural process, and this is how we understand also quality, that quality comes from another perspective, as we still see nowadays, like from this kind of marketing-driven quality ideal.
Okay, and then I think just because we did sort of brief this a little bit beforehand, could you then link that to you, there isn't really a differential between what's coming out from the farm. What are the types of conversations that you have when you're out there in the market, traveling to the sort of 30, 40 countries that you do every year?
Yeah. It's interesting, I have to say, because with society I'm always surprised how those guys are focusing mostly on how they do that, because with the wines you have such a high exception, and with cider not, and it's a pity, because it's the same work, and I have to say with 2015 it was the most labor-intense wine we've ever produced cost-wise, and it was the most undervaluable, to say, product we ever produced, and people just don't want to pay the price for it, and I don't get it, I have to say, and we really push a lot for it, and I think we have to change that as well a lot in the market, because with that people understand also quality for other things different and are willing to pay more. I think we can't just focus that on some specific products we really valuable high or like it, we should spread that for everything. Grain should have the same expectation or perception in the market, the same value, the same quality. And I think apples are, from farming point, a higher value than grapes, I have to say. For me personally, and from the farming side, or I understand farming, wine has become apples are monoculture too, but it's a strong culture everywhere since ever. Wine nowadays is all grafted, clones, and really monoculture in direction. With apple, we have how many varieties in Europe? Thousands.
Couple of thousands.
Yeah, and so much culture with it, and we kind of just wiped that totally out. And wine is so monocultured also from farming, and there's not a lot of development right now. I think other fruits and apples really can help. Another interesting stuff is herbal wines. You don't really have that yet, but I think that can be a future. Vegetable wines. I don't know. There's thousands of options, and use your farm and the whole spectrum, and with that naturally get an organism as well as mixed agriculture, which is basic here for me for a real farm.
Thank you. Just to add something on to have the same laws here when thinking of any fruit fermented beverage, we should get the same law on everything, because of wine, grape, or apple, or pear, or what do you say, quince? What do you say, quince? Quince, whatsoever. One should be that same law, same labor intensive, because everyone has his own orchard or pickup. Work very hard, whatever you want to do, because we're all passionate. And whether you're farmers, whether you're buyers, whether you're pickers, we all give the same value to the fruit and then to the process of making it. Whether you have 1 hectare, 2 hectares, or you're planting 20 hectares, or you're blending wine, grape with apples, we drink cider, we drink wine, we sleep, we drink nutmegs. We all have the same, worrying about the cash flow. So whatever the thing is, we put the same value as wine, as cider, perry. Why is it? Because it's all the same. If you go into UK, especially France, the only country that I know, the cider is classified as very low class, low money, cheap drink, cheap to get, cheap face. But the wine has a bit more, you have to pick the word, no? But when you talk to wine, it's a bit more aristocratic part of it. Whether whoever make a decent fermented fruit beverage, if you do it properly, everyone does the same job, everyone does the same, put the same effort, and it's actually more or less the same equipment. The result has, of course, different flavors, but different flavor, different people.
Okay, and I think, anybody that's actually tasted any of these delicious drinks, certainly get down there after the talk to try these, because I think there's nothing beats actually tasting that and actually seeing that and tasting that for yourself. But that question of where we are now in terms of the wider understanding of cider, and then actually bringing these drinks and this quality out there into the marketplace. I was wondering if you, from this side, would share, what are perhaps some of the strategies, or what do you think are some of the ways that the perception of cider will continue to raise and will continue to grow going forward?
Hard question. No, it's of course opening up people's minds. Most of it, I think, when Raw started, when the natural wines like Latil, probably 20 years ago, was 20 years this year. Yeah. Like before that, people could drink natural wines in Paris. That's it. And from that point until now, it's just the monster wave. I think all over the world. I mean, we get invitations for fairs. Pretty much in every city all over the world, pretty much every weekend all year round, which is crazy in one aspect, but it's also that was probably one of our strategies, because our drinks is so close to natural wines compared to maybe only cider fairs, and then you can attract so much more people to open people's minds. So I knew Isabel from attending Raw before, so I just spoke to her maybe just when we started, and I said, maybe we're not making the best ciders or fruit pet nuts in the world now, but we're here for open people's minds than to show them maybe the best drink they ever had. And what you spoke about now, like farming, how to develop society without to be more environmental friendly, to use what you have, to not do monoculture, it's so many aspects of one thing put in the same bottle as if it's wine or apple juice or whatever it's called.
I think it's also interesting what Karl said, comparing it to the natural wine scene, the development. And when you think about like 5-10 years ago, just I'm sure what he's saying in Austria was big. How was quality of wine defined? It was defined how concentrated the wine is and how much alcohol it has and how concentrated or high sugar level actually the fruits had. And that was from the tasting the same, right? Look at nowadays the scene where we are and what interests us and what we think is the highest quality wines can be wines with 10% alcohol or light source from Jura, and really vibrant, elegant wines, and we changed totally our perspective on what is quality and why we pay a certain amount for a wine. And I think this with cider is the same. We should go away from comparing it to something and just tasting it without any boundaries in your mind. And then you judge the quality, and then you have enjoy with it, and then you're also willing to pay the price it needs.
Okay. And being as you are, you're here representing non-winemakers at a predominantly wine fair, I think this is a great chance for you to ask you, Côme, to just reflect on your recent fair, because I know that you're based down in Saumur in the Loire, and that you had hosted a fair that kind of turned that model on its head. So would you take us a little bit inside of that experience and what came out from that?
I just want to add something about the market, the consumption, because there is we had recently a program on the radio, on the French radio, and this guy from the Pays Basque who said that in Paris, I think it was at the beginning of the last century, they say that it was like for one bottle of wine drunk, they were like 10 of cider. That was a huge consumption, maybe because more people were doing cider, and there's less cider available on the market now. But cider was huge, but it was a different type of consumption than wine. Wine was more for the Sundays and weekends. Well, now it's a bit different also with our wine, the natural wine. It's like anytime. And now back to now. So natural wine is something very common now, or common fancy. And every time and craft beer is also quite big now everywhere. And I think there is space for cider in between, because most people don't like beer. People are thinking that wine is a bit too alcoholic, so there is like a space for mid-range drinks with alcohol content like in between. Not necessarily sugar, but also something different. And I think it's quite good now, even in the wine bars. There is more and more cider coming, and I think it can increase quite a lot. There is a gap. In fact, now to the fair. So my cellar is in Saumur, next to Leguer. It's like 200 meters from Leguer, and Leguer is a huge fair.
It's a long 200 meters.
200 meters. Yeah,
it's more 10 minutes walk.
Yeah, 10 minutes walk. Whatever. That's not far. Anyways, the people now have to walk 10 minutes to go to the bottom, so they can go anytime. Anyway. No, so the idea was to, with this fair, because I'm making both, I'm making wine and cider. And to me, what I see in the world of wine can actually fit the world of cider. So I just went to make an internationalized fair of cider or fruit nuts, and just to bring different people from France but also from other countries, and to attract all the wine drinkers, international wine drinkers, and give them a chance to taste the various selection of cider and fruit nuts from mostly Europe. And I think I didn't expect to have so many people. The conditions were a bit cold, but that was a good success, and we're going to redo it next year. Maybe also there's plans in other countries, like we will also even tomorrow evening by Naughty Piglets in Brixton. So yeah, I think there is more and more small fairs like this coming, and I think it's good for the sector.
It's pretty funny, the idea for the Tour de Foot we got when, last year at Leguer, when we were quite fed up with the whole wine, it's very hectic there, so you get quite tired. So we went to Côme's cellar, 200 meters away, and we had wine, cider, and vinegar tasting. And then we said, let's do this next year. We just bring everything together, and people can try whatever they like, because they have a beautiful vinegar production as well. Mistakes or
mistakes.
But it's so that was a really nice thing. And then he called me just a week after Leguer last year, and we said, we just let's do it. So we gathered like 20-25 producers, and also to show that cider is not cider. It's so many different scales of what you can produce, sugar levels, maceration time, exactly like wine.
And it's also interesting for me to say, so often we have people coming, tasting our normal wine nuts or cloudy wines, which are more represented by the yeast on fermentation, and say, oh, that reminds me to a cider. And then you show them, and they find it interesting, and you're like, okay, it's not a cider, but fair enough. And then they're tasting actual cider, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a cider. Yeah, I will not want to buy the cider, I want to buy the wine. It reminds them they're not into cider, but they're judging cider more than actually the wine. That's fascinating, right? So if you leave that away, there's a lot of chances. And I mean, I'm sure some of you are in trade and working with it. There's so much options when I think about where you see cider and tasting menu. You know, beer, it's coming and stuff like that. Cocktails, you know, so many options. Even people do coffee courses in the tasting menus or whatever. With those fruit wines and cider, you don't see it at all, or little. And I think that can be a really good chance also to, you know, do something else and, you know, open a little bit and be creative.
No, that's it. You said we have a big white page to be written. Nothing is done. If you remember, the big industrial company runs 95% of the markets. Us little revolutionaries, well, we can do what we want because we just like it, and no one will tell us we're wrong. Just you guys, buyers and customers. So if you like it, you buy it. And then these are the mistakes we will make, and now it's probably been a good. So we just need to do what we like, and I'm sure some people eventually will like what we do. So that's it. Start it now.
So you brought up the word that many people have used around this, which is the cider revolution, and you are potentially four of the revolutionaries that are making these changes. I know when we spoke earlier, you mentioned several other cider makers, Cédric, and sorry, the other people that you have been working alongside, and you discussed the changes with. And I wonder if we just maybe kind of bring some of their ideas here as well. What sort of conversation?
Yeah, first of all, with other cider makers, we try after drinking some pints together, if no drinking, no friends, that's my point of view. So with other guys, like in France, we have a couple, 3 or 4 good ones in Switzerland. There's Jacques Peritas, Eric Bordelais, all these guys who knew already that there was something to do, because they did what they wanted to do. They wanted to do something different, but they knew already before us. They're a bit older than us, and us because we find abandoned orchard and they like the flavour, and me that didn't know what to do after my Africa trip. So we became revolutionaries by mistake again, because I didn't know when I met these guys. I mean, 3 years ago. I'm a beginner, so they're revolution. Well, let's do it. I'm not into the politics, but I'm up to the revolution. So, and if it's to change something as to the only weapons we have to make good beverage, well, let's do it. This is what I think. I'm not going against any other big cider company because they are, in a way, colleagues, they do breweries, but I'm not against them. I'm not going for any war. I'm just passionate of what I'm doing. And I think this is enough.
Yeah, when we did the cider revolution, saying, it was probably more, not politically, but it was, because it was the 15% of fruit in the drink that we wanted to change, and also change people's mind within that. So instead of, it was more of a statement, but then we discussed with Côme a couple of months later. It's maybe a cider evolution as much as a cider revolution, because it's only a new approach of the cider to the cider world that can open the cider world even more. Also the classic producers, or the more ciders that people knows.
And sorry, just to pick up on that, I mean, is that even in Sweden, might that be even going back to techniques that were previously used? Because I know that in Britain, cider used to be our equivalent of fine wine. The standards, the quality of the final drink was so high. Has something similar happened in Sweden? Are you going back to what used to happen, the quality they used to have?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not. I haven't read that much cider history from Sweden, but of course we produced more natural products 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Actually, a lot of vineyards in Sweden 200 years ago, and now it's planting vineyards in Sweden again. So this one is actually Swedish grapes macerated with pear juice. So it was also I lost it. Was I speaking about?
The techniques.
The techniques. Yeah, since we're from the wine world, of course we use more wine techniques. So instead of also because we use eating apples and cooking apples, which is not very common in the cider world, where you use cider apples. We don't have that in Sweden. They got ripped off 150 years ago. So we use eating and cooking apples, and then we need the techniques from the wine world. So we do maceration time much longer, like Cédric, probably more direct press, because they have the tannic structure and everything in the fruit already. We have not that structure that we want in our ciders, so we work more like with wine techniques, and I think that was not very common back in the days. But then, so it's a new probably thing to do, and I think that was Jacques Peritas, a big hero for us, when he started to find those abandoned orchards in Switzerland, and to use also maceration time with his eating fruit or stuff like that, and then you can open entire new world. Also in Brittany you have a lot of eating varieties left. So.
Yeah, to some kind of techniques. We basically, when we visit farms in France, everyone has the same press, the straw, everything for the grape is the same machines you can find in all farms, the same oak cask. So basically, everyone were using the same equipment to press any fruit they have. Now I'm using a wine press and wine tanks and potatoes conveyor for the apples. But we keep on stealing techniques from everywhere we know because we are again passionate about the product and we don't want to make mistakes anymore. So we pump information. I pump information wherever I can on the maceration, on the racking, on the.
It's from the wine world.
From everywhere.
Yeah.
So
other places.
Wine. Yeah, talking to fairs, to winemakers, going visiting, talking to other friends, winemakers and farmers, talking to other cider makers. How do you do that? How do you get this? Just to exchanging information. Which is in big industry, there's nothing happening, but in between years, we're happy to share information because, yes, I don't know how to explain. We're using all the techniques we can to make the best we can.
Right. Well, it feels like we've really talked and we've sort of extracted a lot of really cool information from you guys. So, I mean, I appreciate your patience and that we're not doing the tasting here. But I just wonder if we can maybe just have a note to finish before we let everybody come down and taste these ciders for themselves. So I'm sure they're all dying to do. So, yeah, really just something perhaps looking forward to the future, or something that you're excited about for the future of these drinks and this area of your business going forward. Yeah.
It looks like you're falling asleep over there.
Yeah. I am. Sorry, good night. I'm just excited that there's more openness happening and things like they started like this tasting where I was part of as well in the Loire Valley, and I think that is beautiful that there's just more diversity happening. And what we all had in the wine 10 years ago, this boringness of like this conventional way to go and just basically one taste profile, and that's the same for cider right now, any other beverage, and I think it's just getting more excited and we just should continue that, and people also will jump on that trend naturally, and that's how it has to be anyway. We can't push for that, right? If people don't want natural cider, there will be no natural cider in the world, and then we just do something else. Make it Karl fermented or something.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm really excited about tomorrow. We're doing the Tour de Flute. It's not a fair here in London, but we do a after party after all tomorrow evening at the Naughty Piglet. So please join us there. More drinking than tasting, maybe. But it's a nice happening. We will try to do different things, but not like regular fairs. More open. Communities, I would say, to open people's mind, not maybe to fairs, but a different perspective of drinking and tasting.
Yeah, I think it's so things are developing, and with this small fair, what I just realized is you can have ideas inside. We can make sure that some other people have the same idea. Like we talked about beetroots, and they were like, you were saying beetroot cider, and there were already some guys doing beetroot cider also in Brittany, and nobody, I think it's the process of creativity is what is fulfilling me in English. So I like this. I like to try new things. I know I'm not the first one doing it. I won't be the last one here. But I think it's what is interesting in the whole process of winemaking is that space of undecisiveness or mystery that you've got in natural fermentation, where you cannot control everything, or you can, but in that case it's a recipe. If you do natural stuff, you have to give a bit of space to natural processes, and sometimes bring you to interesting things.
Yeah, back to the beetroot history. There was we started with rhubarbs, and we thought, of course, it's a fruit for many people, but it's actually a vegetable. So we started the vegetable pet nat concept with a rhubarb cider or fruit vegetable pet nut.
They do it by wine,
and then this year, exactly, and they do rhubarb wine. So why not make something else? So this year we took it further and made beetroot, carrots, It's very funky at the moment, but we'll see. It's maybe a beginning of something else, but it's also a learning process, also with the pH and adding other stuff to it. Maybe we can blend it with other stuff later. And that was actually influence from the beer world. We also talk about only vignerons, but the beer world is so open-minded. You can do whatever when you make beer. Why not make the same thing in the natural wine scene?
Yeah, we're all excited to taste the first fruit when we go for the beginning of the harvest. We're excited to press the first juice, try the first juice. We're excited to see the result after the first fermentation days, weeks. We're excited to, after racking, casking, whatever, everything back in the bottle. We're excited to present it. Even though we make mistakes, we're happy to try to do the same mistakes again. So it's excitement.
And I think just before we close, I do want to offer, if anybody's got any questions that you'd like to ask the guys, now is your time. If you do want to ask, just pop your hand up. I'll come and bring you the mic. They're here for your, what would you say, to answer anything that you want to ask.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the talk. This might be a product that you're really focusing on farming, so you ferment what we grow. But this did feel like a very kind of global north tradition of we have fruit, let's ferment it. I was wondering if any of you have thought about or done any actions reaching out to places that still have really strong traditions of fruit ferments, like how like Tepache in Mexico and kind of a lot of South America, fermenting pineapples, tons of palm wine in Southern Africa and South Asia. If you've reached out to places where there's still really lively traditions of fermenting other things, thought about bringing some of that in or learning techniques.
Just short answer, of course. We speak with people all the time. I mean, I don't know Japanese that well, but it would be amazing to meet sake producers and join there in the co-fermenting stuff. And also sake, to me, it's mostly rice, but also sake producers, they experiment with a lot of fruits and plums and pretty much the same thing as we do. And that's super tradition and such a handicraft that it's beyond what we do in so many ways.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, actually fermenting is a way to store.
Yeah.
So before they were fermenting fruits to get like a drink, they didn't have drinkable water, so they were drinking cider all the time.
Or to drink alcohol to forget the hard days in Africa.
Okay, any other questions at all? Now's the speak now, if ever hold your peace. All right.
No, just meet us downstairs.
Sorry? Yeah, that's it. Okay. Well, we'll close it. Please clap it up for the guys. I think we'll do fantastic.
Thank you so much to the panel and to the Raw London Wine Fair for hosting this event. With wine fairs currently off the menu and sessions of this type not taking place at the moment, I for one really enjoyed editing and sharing this and being able to revisit the talk. If you'd like to learn more about any of the participants, I've left below a link that takes you directly to the Speaker's Corner section of the Raw website. And I'd highly recommend sourcing out these ciders if you're able to where you live. And of course, as I continue this my first wine audio masterclass series, I would love to know what you think. You can find me on social media where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. See you next time.